Okay, gents, focusing on the next big segment on PST this week. Let's look at the first month or so of the Premier League season. Let's pick some winners and losers and kind of some big takeaways, big picture. All right, it's still early days, but I feel like we've got enough on the table now to kind of make some bigger points about which teams are heading in the right direction and which teams are trending in the opposite direction. Nick, I'm going to start with you. Which teams are we most concerned about given what we've seen so far this season?
Manchester United, and Manchester United.
Fair enough.
2 home games, 1 goal wins over Wolves and Forest, a 10-man Forest, by the way. A close game XG chance entertainment-wise with Spurs. That Spurs won, though, with a brand new team, by the way. And a loss to Arsenal that feels genuinely like a loss to Arsenal. And it's the standard that we wanted for Manchester United. And what really is alarming to me, beyond the scores, if they were 4-0, maybe it's a little bit different, but beyond the scores, is this Sancho thing seems like a crack in the Ten Hag armor. So you look at injuries to Varane or Luke Shaw, and it's okay, maybe I'm a little concerned about that. You look at the results, okay, maybe I'm a little concerned. Those things happen to teams during a season. I look at the Sancho thing, and it's such an unforced error for him to bring that up in a post-match press conference and expect a young man who is used to being labeled as one of the best players in the world, even though he's not clearly right now. What are you doing, man? And let alone there is other off-field drama as well that we don't really need to get into. Manchester United, to me, with an asterisk, an underline, a bold, italicized, they are the biggest question mark in the league.
Andy, you agree with that? Because I don't know if we were high on Man United, but before the season started, and the end of the transfer window, we knew they needed to do business, and they've kind of just muddled their way through the transfer market this summer. Onana seems like a decent signing. Obviously, Amrabat will probably plug some gaps in midfield, and Højlund had some nice touches against Arsenal when he came on, but I don't know if he's really the answer to score the goals they need up top. So again, it's kind of like we're talking about United 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. It's a really weird kind of they keep doing the same things, right? And Nick's right. Erik ten Hag, the way he called out Sancho, the pressure maybe getting to him a little bit, because it seemed Mourinho-esque to bring up something like that post-game and then complain about, there were maybe a few decisions that didn't go their way, but you would have expected maybe not as much complaining about the VAR calls in that Arsenal defeat, because hand on heart, I think he probably knows that his team deserved to lose that game, even though it was cruel in the manner that they did lose in the end. But yeah, like United, what's going on in your opinion?
Are we ready to just accept that this is who Manchester United are now? This is who they've been for 10 years. Since Alex Ferguson left, they have been doing the same thing over and over again. They will go too quick. They'll go too big and all in on a new manager, and then too quickly move on without a plan to go forward, having spent hundreds of millions on players for that manager, and then they will swing the other complete opposite direction stylistically so that all those players they just spent all that money on no longer fit, and then they have to redo it again. And then it becomes a blame game. That's what Manchester United is. It's constantly everybody, whether it's the manager, whether it's the players, whether it's the fans, I guess we don't hear from the owners, but if it's somebody inside the club, operating the business, it's always somebody else's fault at Manchester United. It's never my fault. I need to stand up. I need to do better. It's never that. And I do think that the spotlight and the pressure and the expectations that exist because of just the size of the club plays a part, but I think at this point we can kind of let some of those expectations, we can tamp them down a little bit. I don't expect Manchester United to compete for Premier League titles. I don't expect Manchester United to be a consistent every single year top 4 side anymore, because they have not been for a decade. Let's stop maybe pretending that they are. And I know the name and the money and the pull of the club still exists, but that's all it is. It's popular. It's not good.
Yeah. 2 other teams I wanted to mention quick: Everton and Bournemouth as well. Quite concerned with them the starts of the season. I feel like those are 2 teams who would have expected to be mid-table this season, given some of the investment, Bournemouth side, some of the changes and new signings, and on Everton's side, just the fact that they got through last season and now this is the first full season under Sean Dyche. So That doesn't seem like it's going to be an improvement for either of those teams this season. And I'm going to chuck out another team that some people might be surprised by. I'm not concerned about Arsenal, but I thought they would have been further ahead than they are. I thought they would have closed the gap on Manchester City more than they have done. And I haven't really seen enough to suggest that they haven't improved. I think they might be just as good as last season or maybe even regress slightly. And I know some Arsenal fans out there might not be too happy with that, but I think deep down, given the signings they made, yes, I know Timber got injured early on, but seeing some just similar signs towards the end of last season defensively, that makes me a little bit concerned for where they're going to go, especially with the Champions League being mixed in. Andy, you want to jump in one more time on this?
Yeah, that's more to do with City to me, that they've not closed the gap to them. Are we not going to mention Chelsea at all? And talking about who we're worried about at this point, I know the injuries is a big reason why.
Yeah,
but how long?
I kind of gave him a pass for that. I feel like
but how long is that going to be? How long is Pochettino going to get let off for that before the conversation? Because I mean, Graham Potter was there how long last year? It didn't take long.
You just can't give him all kids and Thiago Silva and say, yeah, go ahead, be good.
No, realistically, we can say you can't do that, but I don't think the people operating the club have that kind of perspective.
I hope you're wrong. I think it has to be seen that way. They brought in one guy who I really believe was supposed to be their holiday. I wish the world would have seen a little bit more of Nkunku, because he's been playing out of the spotlight really since he was at a PSG, I believe, hype product, right? But, Leipzig doesn't get all that much attention. This is a guy who scores 30, 40 goals a year. And we know that's what's been. Nicholas Jackson has looked okay. I will tell you, Nkunku is another level there. And I think to not have the opportunity to go to a Conte or a Jorginho and say, listen, we're going to have to control these games. Conor Gallagher, his advanced stats are insane. He's still 23 years old. There is a lot in that midfield that is relying on Enzo Fernandez playing 10 years older than he is. So we'll see how it gets, but it also doesn't help that Caicedo's looked like he's, I don't know, worth a tenth of his price.
Rusty in a word.
Yes.
Okay, been impressed by Man City. Andy said that they've just kind of carried on where they left off last season, even though they've lost some big name players. They've replaced them and done very good transfer business as always. Tottenham under Ange Postecoglou, lovely to watch. Great going forward. Still have some issues defensively, but still a really positive start for Ange at Spurs. Liverpool, kind of the same thing as I just mentioned with Tottenham. Good going forward. A few defensive frailties, but look better and look like a kind of they're getting onto the next step of this evolution, a second evolution under Jurgen Klopp, it seems. And then West Ham and Brighton, of course, I think, they've had really good starts to the season, some big wins. And again, two teams in the Europa League who strengthened really well, lost some big players, but reinvested the money really smartly. So I think those two are going to be right up there in the European mix again this season. Nick, one key storyline to focus on over the next month or so of the season, maybe anything we've mentioned already or anything else you want to bring up that just to keep an eye on, because as we know in the Premier League, things change very, very quickly indeed.
The Newcastle honeymoon potentially being over. I think it depends where your expectation is with the team, but I went into the season as someone who's watched the club for 20 years and said, all right, well, let's see how you hang with the expectations. They had a brutal start to the season, and you could argue that Eddie Howe is making controversial decisions. We have not seen this ownership group had to really evaluate a club in crisis on the field. And if Newcastle doesn't pick it up, especially with a brutal Champions League group starting, it'll give us a real litmus test of the ownership on how they view this project.
Andy, what about you? Anything we should keep an eye on, mate?
Yeah, teams 3, 4, 5, and 6. That would be Liverpool, West Ham, Arsenal, Brighton getting into European competition over the next month, and how it affects what their very, very strong starts to the Premier League season. Because aside from Liverpool, you can look up and down those squads and say, well, I guess West Ham obviously won the Conference League last year. All due respect, it's the Conference League. There's not a ton of European experience in there, and I guess at West Ham actually make the point, because they won the Conference League last year, they almost got relegated last year. And so just the toll that takes on a squad, do any of those start to just maybe not slip, but plummet down the table a little bit, let their domestic results falter as, their attention turns to the continent.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.